Okay, it's been a while, but we're back. We made our way through the 90s and we survived. Jason went to hell, Freddy's dead, and Chucky got married. Let's all go get a drink. Keep it on track with our year-by-year breakdown. Today we'll be counting down the best horror movies of the year 2000. This is the year that gave us a PMSing werewolf, an underrated Toxic Avenger sequel, and Sam Raimi making a horror comeback. Let's get started. Scream 3 came right at the end of the revitalized wave of slasher movies the original Scream had kicked off just 4 years earlier. By now, there had been too many knockoffs and cash-ins, and horror fans were already turning towards other scares. But still, say what you want, you can never really go wrong with a Scream movie, especially when the whole gang is here. Dewey, Gail Weathers, and of course, the traumatized survivor and Ghostface's ultimate target, Sidney Prescott. In the most entertaining way possible, Scream 3 is almost like the fan fiction version of a Scream sequel. What if we took Sidney and her pals to Hollywood? The plot is a movie within a movie, the story paralleling multiple screenplay drafts of the new Stab 3, the slasher series within the Scream universe based on its real life events. All in all, it's a lot better than you remember it being, but Gail's bangs are still unforgivable. An FBI agent persuades a psychologist who is adept with a new experimental technology to enter the mind of a comatose serial killer in order to learn where he has hidden his latest kidnapped victim. The plot is mostly irrelevant, more a delivery device for insane visuals and acting as a tether for a roller coaster ride of nightmarish imagery. We're rattled before we get a glimpse of the serial killer's mind, but once our protagonist jacks in, so to speak, all bets are off. Past mind-bending thrillers only flirted with the unreal, but The Cell feels like cinema's first true realization of the vast recesses of the mind. Drawn most strongly on BDSM fetishism and Catholic imagery, a viewer is brought unflinchingly through images of victims as both idealized, beautiful versions of themselves and horrible, distorted, sexualized stereotypes. Almost as disturbing is our killer's own self-perception within himself, separated into different linked psyches, as a small child, as a self-aware adult, and as a powerful monster king. All in all, for sheer big budget Godzo surrealism, you can't go wrong. Despite being the third sequel to the Toxic Avenger, Stan Lee's opening narration claims that Citizen Toxy is, in fact, the official sequel to the first film, disacknowledging the events of the first two sequels. Fair enough. Those movies weren't exactly top-tier representation of this franchise. But back to Citizen Toxy. The film opens with a group called the Diaper Mafia taking hostage of a school for people with special needs. The Toxic Avenger and his sidekick try to save it, but they can't prevent an explosion from going off that levels the whole school. It also opens an interdimensional tear, which results in Toxy going to a parallel dimension known as Antwerpville, while his evil doppelganger, the Noxus Offender, winds up in Tromaville. That's right, this time our favorite hideously deformed creature of superhuman size and strength will face his toughest enemy yet, an alternate version of himself.
Ever been to prison?
Psycho Beach Party is a wacky, campy fusion of teenage surfer flicks and slasher sagas. In it, impossibly perky Florence doesn't quite fit in at her thoroughly square high school, that is, until she happens upon a band of ultra-hip surfer dudes. Renaming herself Chiclette, she tries her gosh darndest to be the sole girl riding the waves with the group. Oh yeah, it should be noted that Florence suffers from an identity disorder, and occasionally her alter ego, a sexually aggressive, foul-speaking girl, comes out, in which, during that time, several beachgoers are found murdered. Fun times.
What a chip! Well, it's based on a true story. I'm just glad that creepy Ann Bowman is locked up for good.
Don't be so sure, darling.
A fortune teller with clairvoyant perception is asked to help find a young woman who has mysteriously disappeared. The gift may be cliched on a sheer storytelling level, but the performances and tight direction from Sam Raimi lift the picture up several notches, slowly enveloping the viewer into the many intriguing characters and their individual plights. The disappearance of the aforementioned young woman at the 30-minute mark divulges the movie's true intentions and converts the proceedings into a taut, at times frightening, horror mystery. Indeed, this is a glorious textbook example of a gifted filmmaker's ability to transform a familiar genre and, thrillingly, to confound our expectations in the process. Whether you're already a fan of the wonderful 1922 film Nosferatu, or have yet to be introduced to it, it's easy to fall in love with this creepy, dark-humored, fictional making called Shadow of the Vampire. In the film, German director F.W. Murnau is making Nosferatu on location in Eastern Europe. The director is determined to make this the most authentic movie ever. To this end, the director has employed a real vampire, Max Schreck. In this cookie-cutter movie world, it's nice to see the occasional movie that doesn't quite fit into a specific genre or can't easily be classified. The film impresses on almost every conceivable level, as a pure film, as wild speculative storytelling, and, like the original Nosferatu, a benchmark ranking among the most ingenious vampire movies ever crafted.
I wish you could all see your faces. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Max Schreck, who will be portraying our vampire Count Orlok. As you no doubt have heard, Max's methods are somewhat unconventional.
The wife of a university research scientist believes that her lakeside home is haunted by a ghost, or that she's losing her mind. With What Lies Beneath, director Robert Zemeckis finally combines his fondness for fright flicks with the character-driven drama of his best work, and the result is one doozy of a ghost story. The climax is absolutely terrifying, especially the bathtub sequence. There are plenty of suspense and shocks, wonderful atmosphere of dread and fear. The film goes with the flow rather than subverting it, using expectations to turn the smarty pants in the audience into scaredy cats.
I think she's starting to suspect something. Your wife.
Final Destination is one of the greatest slasher movies ever made. Yes, a slasher movie. After all, just because the villain isn't human or even visible doesn't mean that he, she, it is any less of an unstoppable killer. The killer in question is death itself, and it's a tricky, heartless bugger who seeks to claim the lives of the high school French class members who got off a plane before it crashed. Since they had been fated to die on the plane, they broke Death's plan, and now it's got unfinished business, picking off the kids one by one in extravagant, red herring-filled accidents. It's an ingenious concept and one that's perfectly executed, although diminished somewhat by the derivative sequels.
In death, there are no accidents, no coincidences, no mishaps, and no escapes.
Suburban teenagers, Ginger and Bridget, who hate the world and have a fascination with death, see their morbid existence turned upside down when the older of the two gets slapped with two curses. Her first period and a werewolf bite. And you know what that means. Lots of Tampax. This small town coming-of-ager regenders the werewolf myth as a icky exploration of the monstrous feminine. The filmmakers touch on the same unsettling feelings evoked by Carrie, which was also fueled by the intense mortification that goes along with the first signs of womanhood. Ginger Snaps is an original, intelligent, in-depth look at two teenage girls going through the hardest episode of their lives, and one of them just happens to be turned into a werewolf.
What happened? I get this ache, and I thought it was for sex, but it's to tear everything into fucking pieces.
When Patrick Bateman peeled back his herb mint face mask to reveal his chainsaw-wielding proclivities as a serial killer in American Psycho, America Froze, the director transformed a novel about bloodlust into a movie about men's vanity. In the film, scenes depict Bateman physically and mentally abusing prostitutes, dismembering them with chainsaws, and hanging mangled female corpses on hangers in a closet, which, on a purely surface level, sure looks and feels, for lack of a better word, misogynistic. What so many of American Psycho's critics seem to overlook, however, is the fact that it's a satire, and an incredibly smart one at that. And what both Bret Easton Ellis's original book and the film skewer is the worst kind of consumerist, superficially inclined person who fails to realize surrounding oneself with expensive, fancy things only exasperates one's ever-growing unhappiness. And while the film plays it quite ambiguous about whether or not Bateman is actually a murderer, it's still a great journey through the mind of a sociopath.
His confession has meant nothing.
Once again, thanks for watching, guys, and don't forget to let us know your favorite movie of the year in the comment section below.